Hello, YouTube fans. This is John and part of Fred and John Talk. Where's Fred? Say
Here I
hello,
am.
Fred.
I'm here, unseen.
You're supposed to say hello, Fred.
Hello. Oh, you say it again. Say hello, Fred.
Yeah, this is. Hey, say hello, Fred.
Hello, Fred.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Hey, we have something special for you today. You know, the pineapple is the international symbol of hospitality, friendship, caring, and today I'm going to share one of my good friends, an international friend, whose name is Sohail Ravzi. So, say hello, Sohail.
Hello, and hello to everybody
Hello,
over there.
YouTube fans. Sohail and I definitely share things. We talk about family. We do a lot of things together. We meet up for dinners. We love his wife is a gourmando. I call his wife Samina. She's a gourmando, and you know what I mean by that?
No, what is a gourmando?
A gourmando is a gourmet cook, and she's in command of the kitchen.
Oh yeah, absolutely yes.
A gourmando.
I'm not allowed into my kitchen anymore.
So here's the deal, Sohail. Why do you think we're doing this apart from being friends and sharing and caring? Why do you think we do this?
Well, I think it's we're celebrating our friendship. We're celebrating the common bond that we have, which is, as we're going to talk about it, down under Australia.
Yeah.
And we'll do a good day, mate, to you.
Good eye, mate.
Yeah.
What's
And
a bloke?
What's a bloke? A bloke is a great friend. That's what we're doing. So.
I think Australia is what united us from the very beginning because you lived there.
Yes, I did.
What years were you there in
Oh,
Sydney? Was it
man,
mostly Sydney?
Mostly Sydney. No, actually, I was in Perth, the
Perth.
other end of Sydney.
Oh, okay.
It's like living in DC and San Francisco.
Yeah, okay.
So you were in DC, I was in San Francisco.
Right.
That
Okay.
kind of thing. It's a way across the continent. It's a very long story, which I'll get into. But if you want to go ahead and complete what you wanted to say.
Yeah, I lived in Australia from 1965 to 73. And I don't think we were there at the exact same time.
No, you're giving your age away now.
Oh, well, it was last century. It was last century.
Yeah, I know. I was there, I got there in 1990s, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there for a very long time before we decided to come to the US. My family and I did a lot of things there in Perth. Of course, I was visiting Sydney and Melbourne and all those places
So
all
you
the
traveled
time.
around Australia when
I
you were
did,
there?
not extensively, but I did. My focus was Perth. When I first arrived in Perth, I'm an architect by profession, as you all know.
Yes.
The thing that attracted me about Perth was it was a growing town at that time. And there seemed to be a lot of potential to for an architect to sort of settle down in that place and be part of that construction and that development. So I decided to stay put there. When I was coming to the US, to Australia, the idea was that I'll stop in Perth and then by land I will go across to the other side, but that didn't happen because I decided to settle in Perth because I saw the potential in Perth.
Yeah.
And that's how I got there.
Sydney and Melbourne and the whole East Coast, Brisbane, much more developed and more population on that coast, I think, than Perth.
Yes, there is.
Perth would have been more like the Wild West, probably.
It was at that time,
Yeah.
but Perth is an incredibly beautiful city.
Well, I bet it is.
Yeah, it is. It's become even more beautiful now. It's become more urbane and like an international, feeling there. A lot of people come and settle in Perth from the Far East, from Hong Kong and China and those kind of places. A lot from the Indian subcontinent and Pakistan. And so you get a good flavor. And that I'm not saying Sydney is not like that or Melbourne is not like that, but Perth had a very rich flavor. of that.
It's a
kind
big
of
draw because the Sydney, not the Sydney, the Hobart race, the sailing race was held.
Yeah. Fremantle to Hobart, where
Fremantle to Hobart.
yeah, and that was, I don't remember the year, but that was when the guy called Bond,
Yes.
he won the race.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And America, the U.S. was a big contributor to that race.
Yes.
And that was
They
amazing.
did an unusual design. The
Yes.
Aussie boat was
It was a new design.
Catamaran or something?
Catamaran type of design. In those days, it was amazing thing to do. So, yeah. So that's how I ended up in Perth.
Well, when we lived out in Snowden Bridge, my wife and I, we met you and your wife walking on the sidewalks. And immediately, whenever we started talking about Australia,
Yeah, it was like good day, mate.
Bond.
And that was here in Winchester.
Here in Winchester.
That was right here,
in Virginia. So this is part of the why we do our YouTube channel for folks, is because of friendships and connections. And Sohail is a very, very important connection in my life. And so that's why I'm sharing him with you. Tell us a little bit about your bio of how did you get to the United States?
Oh man, that's a long, long way off. Let me just say that on a stormy, dark July evening, the little boy was born to an awesome mother. That was in India.
In India? Okay.
Yes, I was born in India, and but I grew up in Pakistan,
Right.
all the way up to my college days.
Okay.
And my father was a journalist. He was also a diplomat. And my mother was a teacher. She was an educationist, just like her own father. And she used to teach English language.
Okay, that would have helped you.
Yeah, that was amazing. So both my
travel.
parents were very, very focused on education and getting proper background and proper professional training. But anyway, because my dad was a diplomat, I landed up in a place called Nairobi. Nairobi is the capital of Kenya.
Kenya?
In East Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a diplomat there. He was the press attaché there. So that's how I landed up in Nairobi, and that's where my kind of international career started.
Nairobi.
And I got the taste of being outside my own culture and my own safe environment and see the other parts of the world.
It would have been radically different than Pakistan, Nairobi.
And Nairobi was very different. It was a good time at that time to be in that country. They were doing very well, so when we went there, I was university going age. So I joined the University of Nairobi.
Okay.
And I did my Bachelor of Architecture from there.
Okay.
While I was studying, in the meantime, my father was transferred somewhere else, and I did not want to leave.
So you stayed in Nairobi?
I stayed in Nairobi.
Okay.
And they encouraged me. And when they left, I said, oh boy, now I'm...
Freedom!
Freedom!
Freedom from the parents.
No, they were very good parents. But anyway, so the rest of my university life was spent in Nairobi. I had a great time. I made some great friends. I usually hung out with the African crowd, so I really got to know them. I went to their families. I ate with them. I sang with them. I just lived life with them as a student and also as friends. So it was awesome. It was
so they
amazing.
integrated you into their family a little bit. They kind of brought you in.
Yeah. One of the things I find is that if you're open to other cultures, other people, they open up to you too. Mm-hmm. And that's how you start creating a bond.
Yes.
And you start. Unfortunately, I haven't kept up with those friends because of the later things that I did later in life. Mm-hmm. But they're still there. Some of them have become famous people. I had a friend from Zimbabwe, what used to be called Rhodesia now.
Okay, Rhodesia, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He became, later on I learned that he became part of the freedom movement in And I said, dang, I wish I had
Stayed there.
stayed in touch with him at least, you know. But later on, I learned that this guy became one of the leading figures over there.
Well, talking about being brought into families, when I lived in Sydney, my two good mates that I've talked about before on some YouTubes, Rolf Hallett and Graham Morgan, God rest their soul, they both have died. But their families brought me into their home, and I learned to eat lamb roasts on Sunday afternoons and potatoes. Everything in Australia on Sunday afternoon is a lamb roast. So I had a taste for lamb. So yeah, I mean, the Australians themselves are also like that. They're very gregarious and very, very friendly people.
Yeah, you know, the thing that amazes me about Australians is they're also a first world country. They work hard, they progress, but they have a beautiful work-life balance. You know, they work hard, they progress, they're intelligent people. They progress in all different kinds of fields, and yet in the evening they go back. They spend their time with their families, and they also weekends. You know this.
Well,
I mean, you've lived a life there,
when I
right?
lived in Sydney, I was amazed to see people coming down to Bondi Beach or the various beaches
Yeah.
in their suits. They would go into the bathhouse, change out of their suits and ties, put on their bathing suit,
Right.
take a surfboard down to the beach, and they would surf for an hour, back to the bathhouse, shower, get
Yeah.
dressed, back to the office. So
There you go. Yeah.
that's the
We-
balance you're talking about.
Yeah, fortunately or maybe unfortunately, we do not do this in this country.
We do not in America.
We
no,
we
sadly.
overwork.
Sadly, we do not.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, well, that's a different topic for a different video.
Different day.
But
different day.
but yeah, from Perth, I even before I got to Perth, I lived in Malaysia in Kuala Lumpur. I practiced
Kuala Lumpur.
architecture there. Yeah.
Kuala Lumpur.
Kuala Lumpur. And that again was a time when Kuala Lumpur was busy constructing itself. You know, so that was a good place to be as an architect. And I've seen amazing buildings go up within months. Amazing. If I in Malaysia, at that time in Kuala Lumpur, if you didn't go to a neighborhood for let's say 3 months, you would get lost going there because they were building so fast. The infrastructure, the roads, the buildings that coming up, and that's why they're where they are now. It's one of the advanced countries
Cool.
in that part of the world. So yeah, I lived there. From there, I had a stint back in Pakistan in Karachi, and I practiced architecture there. That was, as an architect, that's one of my most prolific periods, where I designed a lot of buildings. Some of them got built, others did not, because now I feel I was perhaps a little bit way ahead of the times over there. So people were not really, my clients were not really willing to accept what I was proposing. So some of them didn't get built, let's put it that way. But anyway, and from there is when I went to Australia. So
Talking about buildings, my friend, who was ahead of his time in Australia with the Sydney Opera House?
Yes,
Huh?
the Sydney Opera House.
Yes.
Jornson?
Jorn Utzon.
Jornson, yeah.
He was
I'm
Danish.
forgetting
Was he
the-
Danish?
He's a Danish architect.
Danish architect.
Yeah, it's. I have to tell you, Sydney Opera House really is one of the 8 wonders of the world. You've seen it.
I have seen it.
I have seen. You've seen it during construction, I think.
I did, yeah. In
Yeah.
fact, let me just mention to our tech, if you wouldn't mind putting up a couple of the pictures of the Sydney Opera House that I think you
I took
donated
those
to
pictures,
us
yeah.
while we're talking about it. And I was sent several pictures that Sohail took when he was in Sydney. Yeah, it's. I watched it driving over the Harbour Bridge
Yeah.
from Neutral Bay and Cremorne into work, into school. And I could not believe the change that would occur from week to week, month to month.
Yes.
And the structure, it was just unbelievable. It looked like seashells,
Yes.
and then
Do you know it was inspired by the sails of the yachts?
okay.
That's
yes.
why they have those billowing. It's like a
Okay.
billowing sail That
Yes,
whole
okay.
the whole
like
concept.
a spinnaker, like a spinnaker.
Yeah, that's what the concept is
Cool.
in the architect's mind. I think it was brilliant.
Cool.
But at that time, to build such a complex structure, each one of the tiles on those shells is slightly different from the other.
Oh my God.
So they had to actually, each tile had to be designed in whatever computer power they had in those days. It had to be designed and put together. I'm sure they destroyed a lot of them, but it is an amazing building. You stand there and you say, "Oh my God, you know, I've seen this in pictures, but it's nothing like this."
No, it's
It
astounding.
is worth visiting that place.
Have either of you ever been to an opera there?
I did not.
I was
Never got the chance to
wondering
get
about the
into
sound.
opera. Yeah, yeah. I've heard from people who've done that the sound is amazing because of perhaps of the shells. And again, kudos to the architect,
Yeah,
the way he
kudos.
designed it. It
Well,
is.
I remember reading whenever I was in Australia at the time that he was ultimately fired. Utzon got
Yes, he was.
by the New South
Well,
Wales
I think
government.
he was he tried to. I can imagine his frustration when they were not doing things that he had envisioned and he wanted to do.
Yes.
And this happens in buildings of this concept, of this size. There's a lot of, when a lot of authorities are involved, the government is involved, there's a lot of politics going on,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And knowing the importance of this, everybody knew what this would be, right? Everybody tried to get a piece of the pie. So eventually he got very frustrated,
Yeah.
right? And if I remember right, he left on his own, but you might be right too. He might have been fired. But then they started missing him. Oh, how do you think this guy imagined this little piece of detail to be designed? We have to go and ask him. He never came back.
You know what they did? The government, the Australian government, collected architects, Australian architects,
Uh-huh.
who didn't know anything about building opera houses, and they sent them around the world to look at some of the finest, archaeologically designed opera houses for sound, in order to come back
There you
and
go.
finish the job.
Yeah.
But a lot of people question whether the original design was pretty much just left alone, because I think Utzon had made such an incredible plan.
If he had stayed all the way to the end, it would have been probably an even more amazing building.
Could have been.
Yeah, but I think he never lived to see it completed. Did he? Do you know about it?
Oh, whether he died prior to that, I don't know. I really don't know.
May I cut in?
Sure.
Unless I missed something, can you continue how you got to America? Because I don't think you ever.
Oh,
You asked that question, but
Yeah,
it was
you
never
yeah, we
you
missed
haven't
that.
completed your bio back to the States from Australia.
Yeah, from Australia. I don't remember exactly what triggered it, but I remember my brother, who lives in San Diego, lived pretty much all his life in San Diego. He came to visit us. And he sort of
Did he plant the
germ.
seed?
Yeah, he planted the seed in not in my, but in my wife's idea.
Oh, okay.
My previous
Your previous wife.
my
Okay.
previous wife,
Yeah.
that why don't you guys come to the U.S. And one of the things that she missed was having people from the family in Australia. We'll talk about being lonely later, but she was very lonely.
She was lonely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in order to fulfill her wishes and make her happy, I decided to look into it.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, in Virginia, here, I was offered a job in an architect's company. And they were offering to get me my visas and everything. So I said, okay, let's go and try it out.
Right.
And it was supposed to be a temporary thing, but, once you get to America, it sucks you in.
Turn permanent.
Yeah, it turned permanent.
And that turned
For
to
lots
family.
of reasons. Yeah, life happens. So
That
life
turned to-
happened.
That played into family too, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
You have a daughter and
I have a daughter and a son.
and a son. Mhm.
Yeah, they both came with me. I remember when we were going to get. My daughter's name is Alia, and my son's name is Majid. So when I was going to enroll Alia into the high school, and we were sitting with the teacher in one point, and my daughter looked at me, and at that time, She said, "Dad, where have you brought me?" Because she was studying in a private college in Perth, Chisholm College, and she was doing very well.
Oh, so
But
from Perth, she came to the America.
to Virginia,
Oh,
you
to
know,
Virginia.
yeah,
That's a big
to
change.
Fairfax.
Ooh.
So yeah, but then she adapted to both of them. Great credit to them. They adapted. They did very well. And now Alia is a PhD in clinical psychology. She has her own practice in Virginia. And Majid, my son, is leading a team of software developers in a company in Colorado, in Denver.
Good.
So they're doing well. They're settled in their lives. They have their own lives. And off they go.
They're paying into our Social Security plan, which is one thing I like to hear. Right?
Yes. Okay.
Which helps us every month.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how I got to the U.S. And we started living in Fairfax for a long time. But then my job didn't require me to be in a certain location.
Mm-hmm.
So we got tired of being in Fairfax in a crowded place, and we discovered Snowden Bridge in Winchester.
Frederick
And
County.
Frederick County, yeah. And my wife now, Samina, and I decided that, yeah, let's move down here. As long as there was an airport close by.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can get out of Dodge City,
Yes.
they say.
Yeah. And my job required me to travel, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I didn't practice architecture after a while. I got into information
You got
technology.
information tech.
Yeah.
World, yeah.
But that was again related to architecture when I first started. It's called Computer Aided Facilities Management, CAFM.
CF.
Yeah, and that's how I got my training, partly in Perth and partly here. And that's on the basis of that skill I got my my job here in Fairfax while I was in Perth. That's how I got here.
I'd like to shift if we could to things like faith and bonding, because I feel like you and I have a very strong bond, and when we get together we talk about everything under the sun.
Yes.
But it often comes back to our faith, and we have different faiths, but we share, and I think we're stronger in our communication, and because of faith I think our bond is better.
Yes, I think fundamentally, I think at least if I can delve into
Yes.
this,
Please do.
the Abrahamic faiths, they are basically teaching you the same thing. We all three have a different way of looking at it.
Right.
It's unfortunate we've lost sight of that in a worldly sense. But I think you and I have not lost that.
We have not
inside
lost
of
that.
We often talk about what's said in your faith and what says in my faith, and we are surprised that, wow, this is exactly what happens, what we've been taught, I have been taught, and what you've been taught.
Very similar. Yeah.
Very similar faith.
I think
Basic understanding
yes.
of faith is very similar.
Basic understanding.
Yeah,
And I think Protestants and Catholics have their differences, but they're they're in the same lane.
Yes.
They're in another lane, but we're all going in the same direction.
And it's the same with Muslims. It's whatever, I know faith, and religions develop over the millennia into different tracks, right? But the basis of Islamic faith is still the same. The book is the same, and it teaches you the same thing. Everyone has a slightly different way of approaching these things, and that is the miracle of faith. And if you like me to mention God's
Sure.
faith is that God's miracle is this, that there's so many different kinds of people, and yet we all believe in the same thing, in that same one spirit,
Yes.
if you like to call it.
Called spirit.
You can call it Allah or Yahweh or Jesus or
Abba.
whatever name you want to give it. It is the same one thing. We talk about this a lot.
Yeah, we share that, and I think that makes our bond even stronger.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Probably the last thing I wanted to maybe cover with you is you've done a lot of travel, and we were thinking about calling this episode "The World Is Our Oyster."
Yeah, I should have said this. Whenever I talk to people, and they tell me where you from, what it is. First thing I say, the world is my oyster.
Well,
I am an international citizen, if you like. You know, I've been to so many places. I've seen so many cultures.
yeah.
Met with so many people. I've sat down with so many people and eaten their food. I've talked to so many people like you and I talk about faith. I've talked about faith to other people. The best classroom is the earth,
Oh, I
the
like
world.
that. The best.
No university or university professor can teach you that. No teacher in high school can teach you that. When you step out of your home and you be brave enough to step out and say, I see somebody different there. I want to talk to this person. I want to know what he or she or they are all about.
My wife and I believe in the same thing. I think travel has been an enormous educator for both of us. And probably some of the most satisfying times when we sit down and look at photographs of when we've been to Australia, when we've been to Italy, when we've been to
Right.
Ireland. You know, it's
Yeah. I mean, the last travel we did, and you'll never hear the end of me talking about this, is Turkey.
Turkey.
Turkey is an amazing
That's
place.
another session. I think maybe
We
with
can
some,
do another session on Turkey if you
with
like.
select
but-
photographs.
Oh
boy.
man, it really is a place where the world comes together. I honestly believe
It's
that.
a crossroad.
It is a crossroad. If you're just one more thing before we move off of Turkey.
Sure, no, go ahead.
If you're imagine standing in the middle of Turkey, right, in the landmass, you look to your north is Eastern Europe, Russia, and all that. You look to your west is Europe.
Yeah.
You look to your south is Africa. You look east is Asia. So it's in the center of things, absolute center of the entire world, I think, and it shows it when you go there. So we'll talk about that some other time.
It's like Kansas is the middle of the United States. Some people call it the flyover state. Well, we're
Yeah.
going to fly into finishing up here. YouTube fans, this morning I want to pass one other thing on to you. I saw an article in Health Magazine, and of course I read through it real quick about how many steps we should take per day to stay fit and help your cardiovascular health. And guess what? The scientist, the health scientist, is Matthew Ahmadi, and he's a University of Sydney professor.
Awesome.
And he's joined forces with a UK bio group that has 72,000 subjects they've been following since 2006, and they intend to follow them for 30 to 40 years. And part of their study has shown that to counteract the sitting we all do, because sitting is the new smoking, bad for your health, it takes 10,000 steps. So get out there and walk. It's springtime. The birds are going to be flying around. The robins are going to be laying eggs and building nests. It's a wonderful time of year. So get outside and do something and go for it. And make connections with people.
Yes, I was going to say that. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, you go ahead. Make
Yeah.
connections like
Yeah.
Sohail.
Get out of your four walls. Get out there and see people, talk to people. They're no different from you and me. You know, Samina and I were in Turkey. We walked into every shop and we were welcomed with open arms. By the way, we averaged a daily in the number of steps that amounted to 18 to 20,000. We walked everywhere. When we came back, my doctor said, "What happened to your cholesterol? How come it came down so low?" So yeah, we walked everywhere. And
You sent me pictures of that time, and I saw you shrinking. Both of you getting smaller in photograph. This is absolutely true. I thought, what's happened? Are they going to come back sick?
No, we came back healthier. So get out there, please talk to people. If you can't travel internationally, then go into your neighborhood, go into your community, and if you can, then go into different towns within your country, within the U.S.
Yeah.
And if you can do it, travel overseas. I think for Americans, it's a lot easier to travel overseas, and just go and mix with the other people, with the other cultures. You can do Europe, you can do Australia, but go to the third world. See what Africans live like.
Yeah.
See what Afghans live like, right? See what Pakistanis live like. See what Turks live like. You know,
That'll bring peace. All of that will
it'll
help
bring
bring peace.
peace. It'll widen, open up your perspective of what the world can be and should be. With that, I will stop.
You got me wanting to go to Turkey now. So that's going to be on my bucket list. All right, let's.
I think that's a
How
wrap.
do you want to
Sohail.
close? Is that a wrap?
Thank you very much, Mike.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate being here
And
with you
again,
guys.
and again, good eye, Mike.
Good eye.
Ciao.
Ciao.